We're back with another episode of What is Yoga? Part 2 of many parts, I would think. Jen, don't you agree?
Yeah.
So,
at least 8 parts.
At least eight parts. Last time we talked about, or in part 1, we talked about yamas and niyamas, and I hope you could stick with us through that long and lengthy episode. Lots to cover there. If you haven't listened to it, it's not required that you listen to part 1 first, but it might be worthwhile at some point to go back and take a listen as we discuss yamas and niyamas in relation to what is yoga, as we discuss it in the framework of Patanjali's Yoga Sutras. Mm-hmm. So today, we are going to discuss asanas.
Asanas.
Yeah, so...
What is an asana, Andrew?
Why don't you tell me, young student?
Young student. The postures.
Yeah, the
of
physical
yoga.
work. The physical work, which I believe probably 95, if not 99% of everyone who begins their journey with yoga starts with the physicals. Would you agree with that?
I think in an earlier episode, I called the yoga studio or the yoga postures the gateway drug to yoga. Yeah, I'd like to, kind of reword that and rephrase it, but it is, for a lot of people, your first step into a yoga journey is doing the yoga postures.
Doing the yoga postures. So we're going to talk about doing the yoga asanas.
We're going to do it
today. Stick with us. You're listening to the podcast No Expectations, where we discuss all things spiritual. My name's Andrew, a lifelong Zen bodhisattva, recovering yogi, yoga instructor, and author. And I'm here with my friend and student, Jen.
I'm a busy mom, a cyclist. I love to spend time in nature and on my mountain bike, and a yogi. I've been asking myself bigger questions about being on a spiritual path, and I've been asking Andrew a lot of bigger questions about this journey. And we invite you to join us on it. Maybe we'll make you laugh, maybe we won't. No expectations. All right, Andrew, so today we're going to talk about doing the yoga asanas.
Wow, is it required that you sing along with it?
Yes.
Oh, wow, okay.
If I'm going to take a yoga class and there's no music, then, I'm going to...
How dare you not listen to music during yoga asana? Okay.
Rant card down.
Okay, rant card. The rant card may come out today. So if you have a rant card at home, go ahead and grab it. You can play along at home. Yoga asanas. So the what we would say third limb of yoga.
Yeah.
On Patanjali's Yoga Sutras. The physical work.
And he gives a lot of weight to this one, doesn't he?
He does not.
He does wrong.
He does not. He has a very simple description for it. You remember what that is?
No.
The yoga asanas need to be steady and stable. Steady and stable. Yeah, and that's pretty much the extent of his description of what asanas should be doing. It's nothing to do with foot placement. It has nothing to do if you're shrugging your shoulders or not shrugging your shoulders.
Can you get into a handstand?
Can you get into a handstand in your third day? Does not. There also are no pictures of yoga asanas in the Yoga Sutras.
Very disappointing. First time I heard that.
I was like, wait, what?
There are no pictures.
I need pictures.
And he only mentions asana twice.
Yeah.
In his book.
In the whole thing. So he doesn't really concern himself with it too much. When we think about asanas, the physical postures, poses is what it's sometimes called. You'll hear it referred to in a yoga studio. We think about it as the movement part of the yogic discipline. And every spiritual discipline, religion, has some sort of movement in it. Mm-hmm. So asanas are the movement principles for the yogic discipline. I think about martial arts as the movement part of Buddhism. Even Christianity has its own ideas about movement. If I remember as a young man, I spent the better part of my Sundays standing up and kneeling, standing up and kneeling, standing up and kneeling. Technically not a formal version of the movement, but still there. And so we find our way into yoga asana for the yogic discipline, and find that in my opinion, there's way too much onus on it in the discipline in Western modern yoga.
It's so funny. Patanjali mentions asana twice, but if you talk to any of our peers, whether in a yoga studio or working out or coworkers, 100% of their thought of yoga is being able to do these really cool postures. Yeah.
What I hear a lot is, I'd love to do yoga, but I'm not very flexible.
Yeah.
Jen's been around me long enough. She knows my static reply is, I don't care about your physical flexibility. I want to see your mental flexibility. And that gets a blank stare most of the time when I say that to somebody. That's really the important part of the whole thing, is to be mentally flexible, to show up and not be prepared. I had a gentleman talk to me the other day. He's like, when I show up to your class, it's going to be ugly because I've had 2 shoulder surgeries, my hip doesn't work right. And I'm like, come on. Yeah. And what I told him at that point was like, it's about being comfortable and calm in uncomfortable positions. And then that's what we build from there.
It's not supposed to hurt.
It's not supposed to hurt. Not
yoga.
Supposed to hurt. But, the other end is we see a lot of people who come to yoga studios, and they are bendy, they are flexible, and they think they're, and I say that, I don't know what they're thinking. I assume they're thinking this is a way for them to work out.
Yeah.
And that's, it's a thing, but it's not the only thing, right?
So there's a style that yoga teaches, hatha, and he also teaches vinyasa. But when I've taken several styles with Andrew, and there was a significant difference in a vinyasa class and taking your hatha. Mm-hmm. And I know it was because that class, that course, those series are set up to help you get into this steady and stable state, so that the mental focus can arrive. And I think that we lose focus in that in the vinyasa and the hot classes because our bodies are so turned on in that moment. So.
Yeah, the hatha is a meditative purification practice where you need to be still. It's a cleansing type of practice, not only physically but mentally, and it requires a lot of focus. And when I teach a faster class, I seem to attract a different sort of student to those classes. Mm-hmm. And those vinyasa classes, or a power class, or a hot class, people are coming to be distracted. And in my opinion, it takes away from what we're really there to do, is really to focus on the things that we need to focus on. Our connection to our body, our breathing, our thoughts. And not always at the same time, not always simultaneously. Sometimes you just have to show up and feel what your body feels like.
Yeah.
And then once to use Iyengar's word for it, once you conquer the body, then you can focus your mind on other things. But, you have to show up. Mm-hmm. You give yourself that opportunity. But if you're constantly being distracted by what's the next cue, what's the next asana he's going to throw at me, how can you focus on your breath? How can you focus on your thoughts?
Yeah.
Because you're just distracting yourself. And I find that to be not what we're there to work on. So thinking about what Iyengar says is, I was a student in the Iyengar discipline. If you haven't read BKS Iyengar's book, Light on Yoga, it's a good place to start. Go ahead and read the first part and disregard all the pictures.
He does have pictures.
There's
You
lots
got a
of
book with
pictures in there.
Nice.
I'd say it's almost 75% of the book is pictures. Because he is quite bendy, let's put it that way. But what I like about what he said in the intro to the book was many people possess great control over the body, but lack control over the mind, the intellect, and the self. Hence, they are in disharmony with themselves. So back to the point of, if you go into a yoga studio and you see somebody who's maybe already predisposed to have all the physical characteristics to do the things that they need to do for the physical asana, doesn't mean that they're controlling their mind. Doesn't mean that they're in harmony with themselves. Sometimes it really is, in my indication as a teacher and an observer, that they're in that disharmony.
Yeah, well, for me, I found that when I got control of my body and started working on control of everything else, the intellect and, the inside my mind, that's when things got uncomfortable. And it was easy to seek out, how do I distract myself? How can I still do these asanas and this yoga work? But, not get too far into myself because that's uncomfortable.
Right. Did you find that the asanas were just all you really wanted to do at first?
Yeah, at first.
Because you thought this idea of, I'm not really interested in the spirituality component.
I was just really interested in yoga, how it's marketed to us as, a yoga body, a yoga, just this family, this connection, this community of spiritual people.
So were you disappointed once you started your journey? I know it's kind of maybe a loaded question. I don't know.
It's a loaded question. Yeah, I've started and stopped this yoga journey on and off. The first time I took a yoga class was in a workout gym, and the guy teaching yoga was super bendy and really cute. And so there was, this like weirdness in this, where all the women would just come and like sit up as close to him as possible. I don't know. It was just really weird. That was my first interaction.
She's not talking about me.
No, this was not this was not Andrew.
I'm not going to say that didn't hurt.
People run from Andrew.
What? That hurt.
No, but it was just that marketed tool of like, all the hot people come take yoga.
Right.
And it's just so gross looking back at it. So that was my first. I was like 25 and whatever. But as I started practicing yoga and really just getting serious and being at a place in my life where I was ready to dive a little bit deeper, some of the first things that I noticed that I was experiencing yoga beyond the asanas was I would cry, like just this emotional feeling of like I could feel my body cleansing itself, and it would just through tears. I don't know why I'm crying. It's not sad. It's not happy. It's just an emotional like movement, I guess.
That's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people aren't prepared for that. They start to move in different ways. They start to find different places of energies, different emotional releases in each one of those asanas. We think about we're talking about transformation in real time. You're transforming your body from a variety of different forms.
Yeah.
Right? And we can talk about it from like you maybe transforming yourself from a frog into a warrior and into all of these things. This transformation in real time, and sometimes those physical movements, those postures release, different types of chemicals into your body, and you have an emotional reaction to it. It's perfectly natural. And I think a lot of times people come down and like there's a high that comes with it. And so there is this addiction, if you will, that's a strong word, but it's an addiction to that high, and I get that a lot where students come to me, oh, I love the way yoga makes my body feel. And when they use the word yoga, they're talking about asana. Right. And I love the way it makes me feel. I feel good for the rest of the day. I feel loose and happy. But really, are you just like, are you kind of hooked on
chasing that
you're
high.
chasing that little high. So there is kind of a balance that we have to be aware of here, you know?
Yeah.
And it's okay to find that emotional release, that unlock, but we can't discount the rest of the journey just because the yoga asanas make us feel good.
There's so much more to it.
Yeah, there's so much more work that comes with it, and that's my concern with Western yoga is it's all about leveling up, and so that becomes, it becomes difficult in the fact that a new student, somebody who's interested in starting their journey with yoga, sees, whether on social media or around their facility or their club or the health place they're working out at, they see these people that are super bendy, or maybe they've been practicing for 2 decades, and they see these people and they're like, oh, there's no way I can get there.
Can't take that
So
class.
they instantly like, I can't. Like I've got an injury, or I'm overweight, or and they're like, I can't do it, so they don't come, right? And that's tragic for me.
Oh, it's so sad. It's so sad. Every time I hear it.
That's not the thing. So I just want to say this again. Yoga is not about your physical ability. No one cares. And if you find somebody who's trying to teach you that and that's all they care about, find somebody else to help you on your journey, because there are people out there that want to do that for you.
Yoga is literally for everybody. Everybody.
Right.
We've got we're tiptoeing on a rant. But
Yeah, but I think if I can go back, that's the conversation that you and I have a lot outside of this space.
Yeah.
It's like, this is for everyone, and if you think it's only about physical, like no. Okay? And then there's the other side of the coin where there's somebody that's maybe, like, again, back to that, they have the physical ability to do stuff naturally. Maybe they're an athlete, maybe they're a dancer, a ballerina, something like that. And the physical parts of yoga become natural for them. And there's this tendency to want to level up immediately. Okay, so I can do this asana or this movement pretty great. So let me go ahead and skip to the part where you show me how to do the most advanced version of it. And I'm like, no. And I think we may have talked about this on another episode where somebody asked me to do that, to teach them an advanced asana, where I had just met them. Like, they had just come to one of my classes, and like, hey, they hung out after class and said, hey, can you show me this? I said, no. And they're like, why not? I was like, because I'm going to deprive you of that journey.
Right.
Because it's not even the fact that I don't know you, but I also don't know that you have the physical and mental prerequisites that requires you to move to that place.
Yeah, and it requires a trust on both the student and the teacher.
One of my many teachers that I went to, the first journey to meet this teacher, I was very interested in learning from her. And I reached out to her, and she offered me to come in for a meeting. And it was not where I opened up my wallet and gave her my credit card and signed up for her teaching. Mm-hmm. She wanted to know me. She wanted to understand my journey with the discipline. And after we talked for a few minutes, or maybe it was an hour, I don't know, it seemed like a long time, she said, okay, well, here's how it works. I want to have a conversation about your mental abilities. Mm-hmm. And I said, okay. She said, well, I want you to do, she goes, can you do Shirshasana, a headstand in the middle of the room? Oh. And I said, yeah, sure. I can do that. She goes, can you do it for 7 minutes without support of the wall or anything else? And I said, yeah, I think I can do that. And so I set up in the middle of the room in a headstand, and she proceeded to bring in a class behind her, and she started teaching her regular class while I stood there, or was inverted in this headstand for 7 minutes. I was surprised that I was struggling as much as I did to get to 7 minutes. And once I got down, she came over to me and she says, okay, it appears that we can work together. Right?
Okay.
It was her testing my not only physical ability, but mental ability.
Yeah.
And also playing with my own ego, seeing what my ego was like.
Yeah, I mean, all those people coming in, I could
Right.
see how, oh no, they're watching me. Oh no, fall out of, it would be so easy to lose your
Right.
mental focus.
And if I hadn't gone through the journeys with other teachers to get to that place, I wouldn't have been able to learn from that person. And so it's not always about leveling up. Enjoy the place where you
Yeah.
are. And sometimes it might take 3 to 5 years. I had another teacher, that was her thing all the time was, that's a 5-year asana.
Nice.
And that means you practice your asanas every day, and I mean every day,
Yeah.
for at least 5 years before we even have the conversation about that one you want to work on. 5 years? Look, lady, can I skip to the...
Can we just fast forward?
Can I skip to the part where I can just do this? But it's not just physical.
Yeah. It's battling the ego and battling, all these other compassion with yourself. And
Yeah. But, it is, from a physical standpoint, it is required to create those prerequisites yourself. You have to
Yeah.
build those things. You can't just instantly, if you haven't, if you hadn't ridden a bike in 20 years and you decide you want to compete in an Ironman, you don't just start by jumping on a bike and going 30 miles, right? You start small.
yeah.
And the same thing here, but for some reason we want to skip. For some reason yoga doesn't, we don't think about it the same way. I want to skip.
Yeah.
Give me the part where I can take a picture of myself on Instagram and the world just loves me for it.
Yeah.
Can we skip to that part?
No, there's no skipping in yoga, especially the asanas. You do have to practice them every day. I haven't practiced in a class studio in a long time, and I miss that regular practice.
Right. But again, it is making your body fit, a fit vehicle, simply so you can work on the spiritual part of it. Mm-hmm. In a Zen way, we think about it as a rider on the back of a horse. The horse needs to be fit and well fed and taken care of because that's the vehicle for the rider, and the rider is the mind.
Okay.
And if we don't have a fit and healthy vehicle, then the mind is not going to work. It's not going to function. It's not going to be here. So we need to do the best we can to take care of ourselves. And yoga asana is one of those ways. But my challenge for all of you is to, whether you're starting a yoga asana practice or you're deep into it, is to not give it too much credence in the overall journey with it, with the discipline of yoga.
Yeah. Don't think so much into wanting to level up.
Yeah, just be happy with where you are. It's going back to being present. If you find yourself into a challenging position where you're struggling with stuff, think about that and going, okay, where am I right now? And not where do I need to be tomorrow? Mm-hmm. And not where was I yesterday?
Yeah. And definitely not what the person next to you is doing.
Yeah, that's a real, that takes you to Bummerville.
Yeah, it does. Man.
Yeah, because when you walk into a room, you never know. And I think that's a lot of big pressure for people too, who just starting out is like, well, I don't want to look like a fool. Right?
Yeah. Start small with yourself.
Start small with yourself. And then, but there are good places to go be part of a community. So find your community, whatever that is for you. I no longer teach at yoga studios, and I teach at a large club for a simple reason of the fact that yoga studios have their own little kind of closed world for me. It's kind of insular.
Yeah.
But when I teach at a large club, I get the opportunity to work with a variety of different people from different backgrounds and provide them a different level of connection with the discipline instead of, hey, who wants to do some yoga? Who wants to sweat? Let's do it. Let's do it. You know, providing that in a different way, which maybe that member or, you know, would not go to a yoga studio because they don't want to, they feel like, oh, I'm not advanced enough.
Yep. Not flexible enough.
So find your community, find your home, and work there, or maybe just work at home.
Yeah.
You know?
There's lots of YouTube channels
But I think it is important at some point, wherever you are in your journey, is to find someone, a guru, to work with.
Amen to that. I 100% agree.
Because you don't want to, you know, even the time when we spent apart during COVID, I had my students, and even though I had worked with them in person for years prior to that, you know, we spent some time away from each other, 18 months, whatever it was, a year, doing online classes, and then I come back and see him in person. I'm like, what are you doing? What is
Are you
happening
sure
here?
you've been practicing yoga?
Like, you know, like you just threw everything I taught you out the window. So,
Everyone restarted. You know, and I don't think, to add to that, I think that if you are practicing in a studio or in a club or, you know, wherever, that talk to the owners, talk to the teachers, and see where they are with yoga beyond the asanas, and see if you can have a conversation that opens up to, you know, more of this work that we're talking about here that's not just the physical.
I mean, not to pull out the rant card, I do find a lot of yoga teachers, or modern yoga teachers that go through training now, don't even know what Patanjali's Yoga Sutras are and have not read it. And that's mind blowing for me that they're like, yeah, I heard about that book. I'm like, what do you mean you heard about it?
You're teaching yoga?
You're teaching the discipline of yoga. You should know this book.
Yeah.
And I don't mean know it. I mean intimately have deep knowledge of it. Because if not, you're just, and nothing against anyone that's teaching fitness, you're just a group fitness teacher. Mm-hmm. If you don't understand all the disciplines, all the layers of the discipline, then you're nothing more than just a fitness teacher.
I think it's absolutely required to understand yoga and where it came from, its roots, in order to teach it. But that's my
I agree.
rant.
Yeah, I mean, and you know, having depth of knowledge is important. You're gonna be there's plenty of people that I work with that don't want to hear those things, and that's fine. But there's that one out of a dozen that want to hear it, and so find those people in your life. Mm-hmm. Seek them out if you need to, but because they are out there. But make sure that you find the person that, you know, works with you and the things that you need.
Yeah.
So don't push yourself, but enjoy that part of it. Enjoy the journey with it. Asanas. I'm sure we'll have more to talk about it. The rant card only came out. We just basically tiptoed on the rant card.
It wanted to come out. You know what? Use the asana to tame the mind. That's important.
All right, here's our thought of the day. A cow drinks water and it becomes milk. A snake drinks the same water and it becomes venom. What say you, oh great Jen?
My first thought is if snakes had nipples, maybe they would make milk too. But they don't. I'm getting some looks right now from Andrew. I really have a hard time with this quote. It's because I'm a mother of boys.
Oh, is that young boys?
They drink lots of milk. So, yeah. I didn't make a poop or fart joke.
So is it? Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay. So, the idea that we're all drinking knowledge and information from the same sources, and we have the opportunity to make something nourishing from it, and we have the opportunity to turn it into something that can do damage and cause harm.
Right. And I think this quote plays in today's conversation about asanas.
Oh, okay.
In my mind, we can use the asanas in a very productive way to help somebody unlock those emotional connections, to help them physically and in turn mentally. Or we can turn it into a thing where we're hooked on this idea of this myth of I have to have a yoga body and I have to wear the uniform of a yogi, whatever that is, if it's your favorite yoga pants or whatever. And I think that's how I think about it in today's conversation.
Yeah.
In today's episode is the fact that you're right, it is about knowledge and it's how we use it. And it's up to us as people on a spiritual path to think about that knowledge and make sure that we're using it wisely.
Yeah.
And doing our best to nourish ourselves and others around us on this journey.
Yeah. Are you using the asanas to help tame your mind? Or are you using it to hurt your body?
Distract yourself. Mm-hmm. Am I just coming or just setting up my yoga mat because, man, I had a rough day and I don't want to think about anything. I don't want to think about anything. So I just want to go do this because it makes me not think about something. So, obviously this quote can mean a lot of things in a lot of different layers, but in today's conversation about asanas, I think that's how I think about it. Now, is there anything wrong with the snake making venom?
No, that's his nature.
It's his nature. That's a different conversation, I suppose.
Yeah.
Connecting to your true nature. Nothing against the snake. Maybe some of you are lactose intolerant too. Maybe you don't want the milk.
Maybe.
Who am I to judge?
No judgment.
Good job, Jen. You did well with this subject. To be quite honest, this is the third time we've attempted to discuss this, and this is the most reserved Jen has been.
You're welcome.
Way to tame your mind.
I did.
Way to tame your mind.
Andrew, yesterday you posted on our social media feed, our Instagram, about it was Valentine's Day, and we were talking about loving kindness, and you were just talking about loving kindness, loving, not love and or love in, but loving kindness. And I just wanted to ask you, what do you think the difference is between loving kindness and compassion?
Well, I don't know that there's a difference or a direct distinction. I would think that loving kindness is a more precise way of focusing that compassion. We need to think about when loving kindness is that it needs to come natural, and I think we've talked about that in other episodes about our spiritual journey, that this needs to be perfectly natural, that we're not forcing ourselves to be something that we're not. But it's a more granular connection to looking at the world and the people and the places and the things that are around you and appreciating them for who they are and what they are, even though they disagree with you. And it has to be natural. I find that there's this, just my personal experiences, when people know that I'm a Zen Buddhist, they think, well, why aren't you nice all the time? Aren't Buddhists nice all the time?
You're not nice all the time?
I know. and then so they have this conception or misconception of that you're supposed to be like this all the time. Why are you not like this? Well, if it's not natural to me, then I don't want to be that. Doesn't mean I don't care. Doesn't mean I'm not compassionate towards you. I'm not feeling that benevolence, and I'm not supporting you. But it has to be real inside of me, and I don't want to feel that I'm, giving away too much of myself in that process.
Yeah. Boundary, and I think a lot of people see boundaries as not being nice.
Right. And so when we think about loving kindness, it's just about, we don't always have to push everybody up and raise them to the top. We don't have to put them ahead of us. We just need to accept them and say, okay, you have a difference of opinion, or we have the same opinion, or whatever that is, and say, yeah, okay, I see you. And I think that's really what it is. We've talked about it before in a yoga studio where, maybe have two friends or a husband and wife or a couple are practicing next to each other, and one of them will berate the other one at the end of class, or like, oh, you did a horrible job today, you're embarrassing me. Like, what's the point in that? Or one of them is so excited, like, oh, I got to do XYZ asana today, and it was amazing. I've never done it before. Oh, well, you could have done better.
It wasn't that good.
Yeah, I saw it. But looking at that and going, hey, yeah, I saw it. Good for you. Good for you.
Yeah.
And supporting that. It doesn't mean, like you have to go out of your way to do it.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing you say and me translating it is, if you think of compassion as not wanting others to suffer, practicing loving kindness is an action item for compassion. That makes sense.
It's a little closer. It's a little bit more intimate. And it's something that requires a lot of awareness.
Well, that's how you find the genuineness. Genuine. What's the...
Just be Jen. Just be Jen.
Y'all know what I meant.
I'm offering loving kindness to my friend across the table here.
You can't find her words.
For being Jen. I celebrate you. So take a moment and think about that. As you go through your day today and tomorrow, whenever. How are you practicing loving kindness? And it is not, and I repeat, not giving yourself away. It is just noticing the things and seeing everyone and everything for what they are.
Yeah.
And maybe you'll find some happiness inside yourself when you start to connect to that.
Yeah.
I genuinely agree.
Genuinely. Jen. Thanks for listening. You can follow us on Instagram and Facebook at No Expectations, the podcast. And there you'll find a link in our bio to our Spotify where we will be posting new episodes. You can message us your questions or comments. We'd love to hear from you. Please like and share our podcast with your friends and family. Thanks for joining us on this conversation.